Hi everybody, welcome to today's devotional. We're talking about that intriguing character called Samson. Somebody so strong and yet somebody so weak. Somebody who did not know how to handle his strength, and as a result his strength handled him. He fell into the trap of thinking he was too strong. Satan is far cleverer than that. He knows your weakness and he knows how to bring down the strong. Humility, we said, was the answer to your strength. Keep humble, people. To those of you who have a lot, to those of you who are able to do a lot, never lose your humility, because you may end up being in a similar situation. That's a warning that the scripture gives to all of us. I cannot apologize for it. But here's the interesting thing. We all know how Samson had an eye for the woman. You know, there's a couple of temptations that are out there, and one of them is those who run around in skirts and in men. And we find ourselves being attracted to people that maybe we should not be attracted to. And we act upon that. And that is a beginning of a very sad tale of many, many people. But today I want to focus so much upon his fall. I want to talk about what he did after he fell. We all know how Samson played games with God. He played that game about where does your strength lie? And he played the game with Delilah about saying, well, if you braid my hair into 7 things, if you bind me with 7 pieces of vine that have never been used, I'll be as weak as anybody else. But his ultimate thing was he told the truth. She nagged him to death. And eventually he told her the source of his strength was certainly in his hair. She cut off his hair. He woke up, tried to throw off the Philistines that he had thrown off many times, and he found the most tragic words in the Bible, that God had left him. It says of this, so tragic, he did not realize when he was fighting with the Philistines for the 3rd time that God had left him. Now, what does that mean? God had left him. God will never leave us in that sense. But when God withdraws his conscious presence, or his conscious blessing, or the reality of his presence to us, God, I tell you, God can do that in a flash, and it puts us in a very invidious position. God had left Samson. And so Samson ended up not just losing his hair, but he lost his eyes. And they took out his eyes and they laughed at him. They put him in a pit and he ground out the enemy's corn, pushing the thing that a donkey should have pushed around for the rest of his days. He played games with God. People, you don't want to play games with God. If God has said you're a Nazarite, he's not going to change his mind. He's not going to say, oh gosh, I'll let you off that one. God is faithful to the word that he has said. And when God said of Samson, he is a Nazarite, no wine will come across his lip, no one should cut his hair. He failed because he thought he was bigger than God. Now that's a tragedy all on its own. But look at the demise that it led him to. Here he was in the enemy's pit. They came every day, they spat on him, they laughed at him. And they said, Samson, where is your God now? And he was saying, my God has left me. Until one day, the Philistines were having a great celebration. And they said, let's bring Samson out. We need a bit of entertainment here. So they sent a kid down to Samson's hole, and they dragged him out. They put chains on him. They brought him into the temple. They didn't realize his hair had grown again. And they put him between the 2 columns of this great building. And Samson cried out with a great cry. And he said, Lord, do you remember me? And God, with tears in his eyes, says, Samson, I've never forgotten you. Never forgotten you. You still are on the top of my list, man. I still love you. I'm still kind. I'm still gracious. I still love you. Samson, I will never forget you. Your name is engraved on the palm of my hand, says God. How can I forget you? And so Samson cries out to God and says, God, will you give me back my strength just one last time? And as he pushes those pillars down, it says he destroyed more Philistines at his death than he did during his entire life. A couple of great lessons here. People, no matter what you've done, God will always remember you. He cannot forget you for the same reason he can't forget Samson. You're on the palm of his hand. He's engraved your name there. And every time he looks at his hand and he sees the holes in his hands of Jesus, he sees your name there. He will never not remember you. The key is, will you remember him? And as you remember him and cry out to him, God, I have gone distant from you. I've walked far from you. Please, can you remember me again? God will smile. So I've never forgotten you. But now, what do you want? Samson wanted his final victory over Philistines, and he got it. It was a sad but tragic, but a victorious end, I guess, in many ways to his messed up life. But here's the other lesson that I want to close with this week is this. Not only does God never forget you, but God has an incredible ability to redeem the situation. He redeems our blunders. Remember when we spoke about Abraham and how God redeemed his blunder? Remember we spoke about Moses, how God redeemed his blunder. Remember we spoke about Joshua. God has an incredible ability to redeem the blunder. And if we will just submit the blunder in humility to God, God has this incredible way of doing what we could never, ever do. I can't think of a better way to end our devotionals this week by saying to you, guys, remember, God never forgets you. Secondly, remember, God is able to redeem any blunder that you have made. I love that verse in the Old Testament that says of God, He's able to restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. That means that all the mess-ups and the consequences of the past, they're still there. We're still going to live our way through them. They don't go away. But He's able to redeem those things. And those years that the locusts have eaten, for goodness sake, we have a great God. He's able to redeem that too. So I hope that you'll find this end of the close of the week, the wonder of God's redeeming power, the wonder of His inability to not remember you in your time of crisis. And I pray that you do what Samson did. Humble yourself, get right with Him. We'll see you in church on Sunday. I have a message that I'm looking forward to preaching. I hope you can all make it. See you then. Love you lots, guys. Bye-bye.